All right, the recording has started, and this is the October 22nd, 2019 Rook Community Meeting. Let's go ahead and jump into where we are with various releases and milestones. So for 1.1, we have a potentially have an upcoming patch release that is scheduled for today. This is the 1.1 board. And so there are 5 of these that are currently in review right now. So I assume the plan would be to merge all of those into the release branch before, so master and then cherry pick to the release branch before we can go ahead and do that patch release. Travis, do you want to speak to the status of those?
Yeah, I'll speak to those. Not all of them I think are needed for this patch release, but so the first one, Sebastian, has that about ready, and I don't see, is Wayne in the call? We just had he had one more question on the PR.
Yeah, I don't see Blaine here
Or I
today.
don't see him. So, um, yeah, we just need to get that merged. This is the issue about OSDs not picking up on config overrides. So it's, yeah, actually just a pretty simple change for that. And it only affected OSDs that were created before Ceph volume, and so we hadn't reproed it since it's
Yeah,
involved
that was
upgrades.
a few releases ago, wasn't it?
Right, so back to people upgrading from 0.9 or previously probably would hit this.
Got it.
Yep, we'll get that in. Then let's see, what's the next one? Operators deleting the OSDs, which are out. Rohan said he'd have a fix for this one today. This is where we're removing OSDs probably a little too aggressively. It doesn't hurt the cluster, but it causes the admins to scratch their heads and think things that are in a bad state if OSDs are going away automatically. This is about not doing that in a surprising way, or adding a setting basically that would enable the behavior if admins want it. So that's a pretty small thing. Then the third one, enabling restoring a cluster after disaster recovery. So this is a couple of small changes that I've got for recovering the cluster after disaster recovery, like being able to continue if none of your mon pods are up. Let's go start all of the mons. So I think I was waiting on Blaine for that one as well, so I'll poke him. Let's see, the bucket provisioning documentation. So this is documentation, so it could wait till after the release, since docs are always updated as soon as we release or backport the PR, but I would like to get the bucket provisioning PR in soon. Jiffin probably isn't in this meeting, or let's see, I don't see other guys from object bucket provisioning that have worked on that. Jeff or John. Okay, so we're striking out to ask people questions here. But that could come separately. Then the last one is Blaine's PR for upgrade testing, but that's really just an integration test.
And that doesn't block the release, right? And that's why it's labeled as such.
Got that label too.
Yeah, that's a really useful label to be able to like look at the board and tell which ones will actually need to include in the patch or not.
So I should add that label to the doc issue.
Oh, add that label to this one here.
Right.
Cool.
And the other ones in the to-do column, they're not blocking the release.
Cool.
So, yep. And I don't see the OSD there. So there's an OSD upgrade issue where if the OSDs are on PVs, they're not getting upgraded, or they wouldn't be upgraded. So I need to find where that issue went and make sure it's in there's a PR in progress for it from Santosh, and it's about ready for merge too.
And that one you believe should be included in the 1.1.3?
Yeah, otherwise those OSDs wouldn't get upgraded during the release. So that one may not be ready today since Santosh is going offline tonight. So the release tomorrow seems more likely to get it out after he's at the final edits. And that yeah, I think that will do it for 113.
Cool, sounds good. Thank you for continuously keeping up with patches and fixes for supporting our existing releases, Travis. I think that's always really good when if we do identify issues in previous releases that we're continuing to support them and continuing to drive the quality in those releases.
Right, and a lot of the focus of this F team is around driving quality and based on 1.1 for some downstream stuff
Yeah,
for shipping. So
1.1 is going to be the release for the downstream.
the base for it.
Cool.
The 1.2 features might be a bit light compared to 1.1 since so much went into 1.1.
Yep.
Which
Yeah.
is fine, just a natural cycle.
Yep. That sounds great. Cool. All right. So then for 1.2, I have the milestone listing and the board up. There's obviously a lot in that since there's still more than a month away from feature freeze for that. Is there any specific ones that we want to talk through or discuss within the context of this call? Since we're not going to go through everything, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I think there still needs to be an effort put into updating this board or making sure features are in there, updating the roadmap for what we're planning for 1.2. And yeah, I need to get input from storage providers on what they're planning for 1.2.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of things that it sounds like we need to follow up on with storage provider, like the individual storage providers, to get some input on. And they're also listed in the agenda later on that you put in there, Travis. So we can make an effort on that this week to collect some of that information to drive some of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't know that there's a lot to talk through on 1.2 at the moment until we gather some of that.
Yeah, that sounds perfectly good. Let's go ahead and move on to the community topics then. What disparaging things do you have to say about the host path provisioner, Travis?
Yep. So finally, last night I merged an update that will add 1.16 to our test matrix for integration tests.
Yep.
And with that, there was a change that, let's see, we needed to add some new properties. I forget, selector or something to the apps v1 type changed from an extensions v1. I'm probably butchering what exactly the change was there, but some change to the YAML was needed, the deployment specs, and the host path provisioner was also impacted by that, among other things. And I went to see if I could submit a PR to the host path provisioner, and that repo is in read only, like it's not being maintained at all. It hasn't been updated in 2 years, I think it said. So that makes it a challenge to update. So I put a workaround on our side to go pull the YAML and tweak it for our tests. But I think we need a replacement for host path provisioner, something that is being maintained or supported.
Do you think the general concept of within the context of the integration tests, continuing to use a host path just temporarily, for some just transient ephemeral storage during the integration tests still makes sense? Or do you think that there's better support within the ecosystem for like a local PVs or something like that? I mean, there's still not much automation around that, which makes it tough,
Mm-hmm. I think, the local provisioner is the one that seems like the natural fit. Like, let's provision storage from local hosts. It should replace a host path type provisioner. But
there's like a bunch of setup and config and stuff, right?
Right. I'm not sure how much we could build on as far as automation around that or what. I just haven't looked into it deeply to see if we could replace it simply or if it's a bunch of work.
And the workaround that you're currently doing for the host path provisioner there, is that just like a couple of like new values or different updated values within the deployment YAML, or what's the scope of that?
Yeah, it's replacing a couple of things in the YAML. Just replace one string for another.
Okay.
Or add a snippet of YAML.
Got it. So there's not a lot of complicated logic that you had to add or write.
Right. It's fairly simple.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if that sounds interesting to someone on the call, it's something that we could use a contributor for. It's used by those three storage providers: Cockroach, NFS, and Yugabyte. So it'd be most natural if someone from representing those were available. But yep,
Yeah, and it's definitely been pretty useful within that, that context of just a very simple, like, here's a little bit of storage that you can use while you're running this integration test, and it's ephemeral, and it just fits that scope very nicely. It's worked for a couple of years too. I think we put that in, like, I wrote that into the first integration test that used that like a year and a half ago, probably. So.
Yeah, I figured you'd have the most context there.
Yep. So. Yeah, I've got year and a half old context since I initially wrote it and haven't looked at it since.
Stale context.
That's called quality code. It works for more than a year, and you don't even have to think about it until it becomes your problem, Travis.
Then I have to fix it for you. Yeah.
I said quality. I didn't say really anything else. Awesome. Yeah, I might want to think about that a little bit too, honestly. Cool. So then let's move on to the next one here. So KubeCon San Diego is coming up. That is just under a month now. And that's going to be super exciting right here in my backyard. I'm excited to be hosting all of you wonderful people here in my fair city. The Rook booth, so that is part of the CNCF Project Pavilion this time. We do not have our own specific Rook booth. The CNCF was encouraging CNCF projects to participate in the Project Pavilion, so we'll be kind of associated with and involved with and next to a bunch of the CNCF projects. So I think that'll be a cool experience. But we do need to, part of the agreement there is that we need to staff the booth the entire time. Travis, is that something that Mike Perez is driving for the schedule?
I'm sure he'd be happy to help drive that. We haven't put together a schedule yet.
Awesome. That'd be good to start figuring out like time slots and have people enable people to sign up for times that work best for them, given other constraints and talks and stuff that folks will be giving. And then exactly. that note here is important too, that, basically anybody would be allowed to or encouraged to participate in that. I think, not just like only other storage providers that are participating in the Rook project, but also community members too. If you want to come and, talk about Rook and sync up and, have discussions with other folks that are interested in the Rook project, then that would be all the better as well. I'm happy to have lots of folks come by the booth and participate.
Right. Yeah, and I'd like to schedule or also publish a schedule as far as when storage providers would be at the booth, so that people know, if I want to talk about EdgeOS, come at this time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I like that too.
And if someone wants to be at the booth the whole time, great.
So we have a schedule for Alexander's flag.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the flag.
Like where the flag is going to be.
I'm not sure if I'm going to have both flags with me, by the way. I have
just one?
Just one. So I'm still waiting for the person to give it back, so I can't guarantee it with 2 flags. I'll try my best, though.
Somebody stole your flag. All right, so let's we can put out a message like to the Rook Slack to encourage participation or invite participation for anybody who wants to collaborate there, and we can drive the schedule over email or start a spreadsheet for that to have people be able to sign up for slots.
Yeah, and one more comment about the booth for what CNCF has said is appropriate. Like, it's appropriate to talk about Rook and all the open source stuff, just not like selling specific products or downstream specific products. It's just an upstream conversation about Rook and storage providers. And swag, people, I think you're welcome to join or bring swag for Rook or the storage providers. Again, just not for downstream product stuff.
Yeah, no products at the CNCF booth. Yep, that's totally reasonable from them.
Yep.
Cool. And then
go ahead, Charles. I think they did say we have just one little table. Like we don't have a lot of space, so we probably can't have like 10 people in the booth, but it'll be a little small, it sounds like, too.
Yeah, it does sound like it'll be a little more cramped than normal. They said that they expect that there is room though to have a laptop to drive demos and such though. But we should probably get some clarity about what particular resources we'll have available there. If we're going to be driving it just off a laptop screen, or if we have like a TV or something, or a monitor, excuse me. So I think there's a little bit of clarity to understand there.
Yep.
And this is a bit of this is the first time they've had the Project Pavilion for the CNCF, so there's a lot of unknown here. Nobody's done this before, so hopefully it works out. We're going to do our best to make it a good experience, but there could be some lessons to learn here from it, and corrections to make for the next KubeCon. So we will see how it goes and do our best. And along those same lines, another first that we'll be doing for KubeCon San Diego is that we traditionally have had two separate sessions, a Rook intro session and a Rook deep dive session. But this time we opted for a combined session, which is 90 minutes. And it's both serves as an intro and a deep dive. So Travis took a stab at creating an agenda for that. It's not linked here, but one thing that we did want there is to that we have time on the schedule for various storage providers in Rook to do presentations and dive into some of their architecture and features and capabilities, et cetera. And it would be nice if we could do if that focus of those could be some of the newer storage providers, such as Yugabytes or Ozone, if that makes it in as well. So that would be pretty cool to be able to dive into some of the newer storage providers and kind of share with the community some of the continued recent progress that we have within the Rook ecosystem.
Right. Yeah, and I like the focus around what's changing or where's the active development in Rook. What's changed since the last KubeCon, for example.
I'd be happy to give the same intro session that I've delivered like 25 times.
Right.
If people want to see the same stuff, or we could do something new. That's probably a good idea.
We still need the intro. We've got plenty of time to do some intro, but
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and mute that real quick. Sorry. I like the idea too of giving new folks that haven't had a lot of chances to present in the past to be able to get on stage and present the material like the intro and stuff. So I don't know if we have someone specifically already slotted for that, but I am open for folks that want to stretch their legs a little bit or stretch their wings, whatever the expression is, and be able to present on that type of material as well, in addition to this new storage providers too. Any other thoughts on that?
I'll plan on reaching out to storage providers because they're not all here today. Or are other storage providers here that want to chime in on their interest in presenting at KubeCon? I don't see them. Yep. So I'll reach out to others.
Yeah, and then along those same lines there, so with like the 1.2 milestone, the plans for staffing the booth, the plans for presenting in the combined intro deep dive session, and then roadmap input too. That's, I guess, 4 things that we should follow up with all the storage providers to get their input on.
Yep, will do.
Alrighty. So we kind of discussed this PR or this area during the 1.1.3 patch release section. Is there more to bring up for this, Travis?
Not really. I was hoping someone would be here that would have more on that.
Oh, so, like Jiffin?
Yep. Yeah. And same thing for the next one. Just need input from Blaine, and I'll follow up there.
Alrighty. Okay, so that was the full agenda that we had written down here on paper. Were there any other topics or concerns that folks on this call wanted to bring up now?
There's a question in chat about Cassandra operator.
Chat.
Yanis, I don't see Yanis on the call. He could answer that the best, but Jared, maybe you want to take a stab at it. Do you see the question?
Yeah, let me Zoom. I'm constantly moving things around on me. There's chat. Got it. Found it. Okay. Okay, cool. Yes, so for the Cassandra operator, that effort was started last year and finished earlier this year, I believe, by Yanis Sakardas. He did that as part of his thesis, his master's thesis, and he did an incredible job at that implementation with a fairly robust feature set for the operator of scaling up and scaling down Cassandra clusters. It is officially marked as alpha. The development work that's going into it has decreased over time since the initial massive push on it. So I would say that it follows the same caveats or concerns as any of the other alpha storage providers in Rook. I think that with that initial investment there was a really good the product to that was really good. And so I think that, we'd be excited about potential contributors or new collaborators on that operator to continue driving it towards beta or, further reliability and stability, because it's already was an amazing effort for the official alpha designation it has now.
Yeah, hi guys. So actually, I posted a question. So actually, I had recently started evaluating Kubernetes for my Cassandra cluster, and I was looking at various operators. And I found Rook as operator, which is also part of a CNCF organization as well. So, but I don't see any kind of active development in the Rook Cassandra, specifically Cassandra database side of things. So, but there are various other operators like InstaCluster operator and the Orange operator, which are constantly being developed, but they are part of other organizations. So that's what I want to understand, like a future roadmap, whether Rook has for Cassandra, where you guys will be actively developing it, developing the operator for it. Is there any dedicated future plan for that?
Yeah, so that kind of gets back to, there isn't a lot of active development on it right now. There's a couple open pull requests for it, but there's not a dedicated resource that's focused on the Cassandra operator. So, we would love to have more community participation in that, but right now there is not someone who's dedicated or focused on improving and driving the quality of the Cassandra operator. So until we have more community support from that or community contributors, then it will remain that way for right now.
Okay. That sounds good.
Did you get a chance to try it out, to deploy it and see how it worked in your environment?
Yeah, actually, I deployed it on my Kubernetes cluster, which also I posted on Azure. So it was like it worked. Basically, it was one node cluster, sample cluster. It has some basic functionality, but that's what lead to me the question, like if there would be any extended functionality which would be added. But overall, the current package works well.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for giving it a try. I'm gonna. So the original author and maintainer of that, Yanis Sakardas. I want to follow up with him and see, like, if he has any, like, get an assessment from him to see if he has plans for further development on it, or if any add new features to add and such, to see if he has anything in the pipeline there that I'm not already aware of. Because that would be really cool if he was planning on contributing. Would you just get run over by a car, Alexander?
No, that's me. I had ping comments about that. I think you were the one that wrote the message on the list. Right?
You're breaking up a little bit for me, Alexander. It was hard to hear you.
Were you the one that wrote the message on the mailing list? What was your name again? Where was it? So, yeah, well, I pinged Giannis about the message on the mailing list today.
Oh, okay. You already did that today.
Yeah, I wrote in, hey, if someone's interested in the state of the Cassandra operator and all, and send him the link to the mailing list entries. So.
Okay, cool. So you might be able to respond there then.
Yeah, actually, I posted that question on the mailing list as well. So it would be great if somebody can reply to that and give some detailed information regarding the future of Rook Cassandra. As you mentioned, that Yanis would be able to help, but yeah, if he would be able to reply, that would be great.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that sounds good then. Yeah, we'll follow up on that mailing list post then. Cool. And thank you for starting that conversation. Actually, I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any other topics here? I think that's all that was in the chat.
That's all I had.
All right. If there are not any further topics of conversation, then we can go ahead and adjourn for the week here.
All right.
And we'll follow up with all the storage providers on those items that we wanted to discuss. All righty. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Good to see everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.